Yeah, it's been some months. On him being brought up, I really didn't have too much of an opinion because, to be honest, I hadn't watched him previously much. I know he was doing fairly well with the Barracuda, putting up some points, and I know he's kind of been like a fringe NHL player, a guy who does fairly well in the AHL, but really hadn't cracked in full time to the NHL. So I didn't really have a positive or negative thought about it, but I was pretty pleasantly surprised with his performance tonight. I thought he had a good effort on several different plays. He created some chances. He almost scored a goal. And then I thought he did really well on that second goal, creating that chance. Is it my audio or yours?
Boom. Weird. All right. I'm sure you guys can hear me now. I apologize for that. All right, here we go. Yeah, this is weird because normally my mic just automatically gets picked up by OBS, and for some reason today it just did not. Can you guys hear me now? There we go. All right, the chat says they can hear me now. Great start. Anyway, all right. So yeah, so my thoughts: Justin Bailey getting signed, getting brought up. I don't have a problem. I was being really snarky about this on Twitter. I don't have a problem with Justin Bailey getting a contract, getting that NHL money. I'm super happy for him. My issue is you signed a contract instead of just bringing a guy up. Like Justin Bailey's a good hand, and he's like, he's like Ryan Carpenter. He's a guy you can come up. He can give you reliable minutes in the bottom six, but you kind of already have that Ryan Carpenter. And I understand like there's injury issues and whatnot, but like you have guys that are under contract, and even if like, so let's say you bring up Gushkin and someone else comes back and he has to go back down, is that the end of the world? No, like any slice of NHL action you can get them, I think is a good thing at this point. And for me to not give him that, that opportunity to come up, him or Bordeleau. I think Bordeleau I've been super critical of this year, but he's really kind of found his way on the Barracuda in the last couple of games to the point where, again, like instead of signing a contract, getting up to 49 out of 50 contracts, which doesn't matter in November, but it's going to matter come the new year when you start looking at who you're going to sell off and who you're taking back. Having those extra contract slots open is only a good thing.
Yeah, I think it's a fair point. And on the prospect front, like I'm one of the people who's okay. I think with Gushkin and Bordeleau definitely having time in the AHL. But I also think you need to reward players for playing well.
Yeah.
So when you have a guy like Gushkin who is playing well, you have Bordeleau who started putting up points in the AHL and getting his game back. You gotta give Dangle that carrot in front of them, give them the boost to the AHL, and let them get that time. They earned it. Let them earn that time and reward them for it. Bailey, I don't really have an opinion on where another. I don't really think he's part of the Sharks' future. I like what he did today. I obviously would much rather see Gushkin, I think, like you, or Bordeleau in some of those minutes and getting that time in the NHL to help them develop. So I definitely see your point there, and I'm kind of on the same wavelength as you. I don't really know much about Bailey. I definitely liked some of his abilities today. I mean, the guy was a former second-round pick, so there has to be skill there. But again, he's a fringe player. Like, he's not someone that you're looking at like, ooh, this is the future of the Sharks.
this show. Okay, there we go. Oh my god, this is worst. Okay, are we here again? Can you guys hear me? What is going on? I have to figure this out. What are you doing here? Whatever. We'll deal with this later. I blame Canada. This is chaos. We're just not putting this up on the audio. Sorry. If you are not here live, fuck you. I don't know what to tell you. Okay. So anyway, what I was trying to say is like the Sharks, like right now, I don't know where I got cut off, so I'm just gonna say it all over again. And if I'm just repeating myself, and this is
the development and the lack of wins with Barracuda.
Like the development, lack of wins, right? Like the Barracuda have less wins than the Sharks do now. Like for all the talk of how bad this Sharks team is and how brutal everything is, this Sharks team has won more games than the Barracuda. At this point.
And also on that point, I think it was I don't remember if it was Greer or Quinn who said it, but they said they want some of their players getting like top minutes in the AHL. Yeah. Like, have you seen our top 9 or even all of our forward lineups, our lines? There's no one holding Gushin from getting second or first line minutes. Like, these guys can jump right in and they're not going to be held down on the fourth line. So they can get those minutes in the NHL. So I definitely think, some of that is, I don't know, just talk. I feel like to the media.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily align with what they're saying there.
Yeah, it's silliness. I don't know. And it's not even just like in the media. It's just like when everyone's like, oh, but development's like, I look at, and I said this on a previous show, like I want people to be excited about the Barracuda because then I don't feel like, I enjoy watching hockey. So watching the Barracuda is not like this big cross that I have to bear, but like, I would love to be able to like sit here with a straight face and be like, you got to get excited about the Barracuda. And I can't this year. And I want to, like, because then we could do, like, if people got excited about the Barracuda, we could do more Barracuda content, right? And it wouldn't just be like, it won't get a quarter of the audience that our normal stuff gets. I don't know. It's super frustrating. Let's get to this game, though. So, I mean, the Sharks win 2-1. Good. I thought Blackwood had a really good night tonight.
Yeah, he's just doing more Blackwood things. Like, it's another game where I feel like the Sharks didn't really deserve a win, but Blackwood deserved a win. So that makes me happy. I'm happy to see him putting up games like this time after time. And you look at him also, like, he's a goalie whose goals against average is like closer to 4 than it is to 3. Mm-hmm. And he still has a save percentage above 90. Like,
which is insanity.
Not something you see very often.
No, like you would expect him to be like down in like the 860s at this point. With the way this team has been shelled. Especially like getting, because him and Kunin both, they both have games where like half games completely destroy your GAA. But it doesn't help your save percentage either too. Like if you get like lit up for, 5 of,
in a first period.
Yeah.
Like it's happened a few times. Like imagine what his save percentage would be if it wasn't for a few of those 10-goal games where him and Kunin are pretty much splitting the game. It's like pretty much outside of those games, he must be in like the 950 or 940 range.
Yeah. Yeah, it's pretty. I can't say enough good things about Mackenzie Blackwood. I can't, like, people like, and everyone's like, oh no, we got to trade him now, and I don't get it.
Yeah, like, that's kind of the area I'm in as well. It's like, sure, I don't think anyone's giving up a first round pick. Like that's probably not happening. First round picks are super coveted and highly valued in this league. I don't know if anyone's giving them up for Kunin, who's kind of like a bounce back project this year, but also like we have a goalie who's playing so well that he's willing this team to victory on some nights. Like you just don't get rid of him at this point. Like I don't see the purpose. Like if someone does throw a first round pick your way, fine. But like he's most likely going to get traded for like a second. We don't need to do that.
I don't see it. Like the thing is like with goalies, like goalies never, for the most part, there are exceptions to the rule. Like I think Marc-Andre Fleury went for a pretty decent return when he got traded. But like for the most part, like even at the deadline, goalies generally don't fetch much.
Yeah.
Like I understand like if you're looking at a team like Edmonton, who is completely over a barrel right now, like maybe you could get them. But to me, like, and I like what Mackenzie Blackwood's done, and this is not a slight on Blackwood at all. But I look at like history of Mackenzie Blackwood, right? Like he had a really good rookie year and then it kind of trailed off. So like, am I giving up a first round pick for like this Mackenzie Blackwood? Like, is this Mackenzie Blackwood going to turn into a pumpkin? I hope not. But like, at least if you're a team, especially a team like in a situation like the Oilers, like you have to at least consider that, no?
Yeah, I think they are desperate enough where they consider it. I just don't think the return will be what Sharks fans want. Like a lot of the rumors going around Twitter are just, they're heavily inflated. I think maybe the Oilers would come back offering a second round pick or, some sort of conditional picks. But I don't know. I don't see them offering a first, especially with where they are in the standings. I mean, it would have to be lottery protected, which then pushes it to the next year, right? So, and who knows what happens at that point. So
yeah, and that's the thing, right? Like, unless you're getting lottery protection, like unless you're not getting lottery protection, it doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, exactly.
For the Sharks either, like, because you're going to give up your goalie, and then if Edmonton just continues to plummet, now you're looking for another goalie because none of your, like, all your AHL guys, like, other than Mackenzie, who's just finally, he looked pretty good in his last start with the Barracuda, but he just got healthy again, and we don't know how long that's going to last. And again, I'm not trying to pick on E2 Mackenzie here, but that's, like, at this point with the injury history he's had recently, like, you have to at least, you're going to need a little more time before, like, that narrative is going to kind of go away with him. Magnus Krona has been okay, but first year pro. Georgi Romanov, first year pro, first year in North America. And I don't think Kaapo Kähkönen's it. So, like, if you moved Blackwood, then you're completely at square one.
Yeah, there's no clear successor in the Sharks goalie pool. And Blackwood's not even old. He's 26. I mean, most of the times the Sharks have made trades for these goalies. You think back to when they traded for Jones, traded for Adin Hill. These guys were in their mid-20s. So he's in a point now where, like, goalies are kind of weird like that, right? They sometimes have their best years at 26. Sometimes they have their best years at 30. Like, who knows? But he could be a guy that, if you really like him, stays with the franchise for a good 4 to 6 years. Maybe when they're starting to compete again, he could be the starter. You never know.
Yeah. So Blackwood on the game said that the felt good, saw the puck well. On the goal, I got hit in the ribs, lost wind, but fluky goal against. Which, yeah, that's about right.
Yeah, off Okhotiuk. I can never say it right, but yeah, off of him, I think, I've liked his game a bit. But off his leg or his back or whatever it was and into the net. Unfortunate.
See, I think he's been okay, but I think he's a guy who I think would benefit from going down to the Barracuda. The problem is like, because he's a part of the Timo Meier trade, that if they lost him on waivers, that the optics of that would be just absurdly bad.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I think I like his tools, but he's definitely raw. He needs development.
Yeah.
Like, I like his physical game. I like some of his abilities. I've seen moments from him. I think he just needs time, and it's not always great to be in the NHL getting that time. Sometimes you do need that in the AHL.
Yeah, I mean, and plus they've got so many D-men right now. Like, they've just got an absurd amount of D-men on the active roster right now. I mean, it's the injuries have obviously made it kind of okay, but like there's got to be, at some point, like, this team's gonna get healthy. Maybe, I don't know, maybe not, with the way these guys keep going down. Like, when we saw Kevin Labanc going on, I'm like, oh my god, I can't even imagine like what they're gonna do if Kevin Labanc joins the ever-growing IR list.
I sometimes forget Couture's even still on the team, honestly. Right. Like, I saw the tweet today that he's like gonna start skating soon, and I'm like, oh, that's right, he is actually still on the Sharks.
I mean, I hope he does. Like, it would be nice to see Couture get back on the, to get back on the ice. I don't know what's ailing him, but obviously I can't imagine him be like Couture being the player he is. I can't imagine this has been easy for him to watch from the press box.
Oh yeah, for sure. He's very much a competitive person. Like, you can tell he hates losing. He wants to win. Now, it would be tough to be enduring what the Sharks have been going through on the ice might actually I can't even think if it's easier being up in the stands watching or being on the ice in some of those games where it's like 10-2.
Oh, I think being in the stands would be worse. Like, I don't know Logan Couture personally, obviously, but I mean, if you're, like, I think he's, from all presenting, like, he does take being the captain very seriously.
Yeah.
And I can't imagine, having to watch from the press box knowing that you can't do anything to try and change things on, like, I mean, you can go down and give everyone an attaboy in the locker room, I guess. But I mean, beyond that, like, to not be on the bench, to not be able to, like, talk to the guys in the dressing room between periods or whatever. You know, not say that the Sharks are completely void of leadership in this situation, but I think just from a guy like that has the compete level of a Logan Couture, I can't imagine that's easy.
Yeah, for sure.
What else? Did the Sharks only have one A on the ice? I didn't look. I don't care about letters, so
I haven't paid attention to that in a long time.
Yeah.
Ever since they started removing C's from names long ago with Marlowe and Thornton, just who it's attached to.
Yeah. So why is Jules asking, why is Couture not on the LTIR? The reason he's not on the LTIR is because it allows the Sharks to accrue more cap space at the end of the by the trade deadline. If they put him on the LTIR, it would actually negatively impact their end of year cap availability for them to make moves. That's why he's not on the LTIR, not counting against the cap. Yeah, I mean, what else happened in this game? Luke Kunin scores the game-winning goal. He's kind of, him and Hoffman have really, like, they've been like the absolute like targets of Sharks fans, I think, this season. But him and like Hoffman have really come on of late. Not giving Sharks fans a lot to be angry about. I mean, we'll find reasons to be angry with Sharks fans, but I think they've really come on of late, and it's nice to see because, like, I don't know, I like Luke Kunin's not my favorite guy on the team, but I mean, you know, you want to see guys do well.
Yeah, and he's playing higher in the lineup than he probably should be. Like, on a good team, he's not playing in the top six, right? He's probably a third liner. But, I mean, he's doing what he's asked for. He plays physical. I like that. He defends his teammates. 5 goals so far in the season. So, you know, what's that? Close to a 20-goal pace. Not bad. Not going to complain about that. So, yeah, I like what he's doing. And then also, you mentioned Hoffman. Guys like him are the ones we need to be watching, because if there's anything that's going to be dangled later in the season, it's a guy like him, maybe a Granlund. Those are the guys that we really need producing. So to see Hoffman scoring, to see Granlund having a few good games in a row, I think those are things that we need to track, and hopefully they can build upon, because those are the guys that might fetch that second round pick when it comes to the deadline, where we free up some cap space and teams can take on that 4 or 5 or whatever million cap hit that it is.
Yeah. Hey, I just want to say hi to Laurel, who I see in the chat, and I haven't seen Laurel in the chat for a long time. So Laurel, hi, how you doing? I hope you're doing well. Good to see you. Yeah, I mean, obviously, I think that's the thing, right? Like, obviously, for the Sharks to have success this season, their success isn't success. It's getting these guys who they brought in to, you know, be appealing to other teams at the deadline, where they might take a, you know, a flyer on a guy like a Mike Hoffman. If a team, you know, if he can keep this scoring touch up that he's recently found, which is nice to see, if he can keep this going, I mean, you know, a team that's looking for, you know, a pickup for a playoff run that needs a little bit of a depth scoring situation, or, you know, maybe a guy who can get thrown out on the power play and get some points. I mean, Mike Hoffman, you could do probably worse if he can keep this going. So yeah, I mean, that's what I'd like to see.
Yeah, for sure. Him, I would like to see Duclair generating a bit more offense. And also Zadina, obviously, as well. But with this lineup, you're going to have guys, I think, go in their ebbs and flows. You're not going to have just the whole team producing at once.
Ideally not, because then they'll start winning too many games, and that'll be
exactly
bad.
The tank gets in jeopardy.
The tank gets in jeopardy. I'm not worried about the tank yet. Like, again, when the Sharks do get good, I'm not going to get on here and get mad at a win, especially a win in November. Especially beating the Capitals. I think the Capitals are a team like that they should probably beat, because I think I don't know, if the Caps to me are pretenders.
Oh, for sure. They're kind of in the same. I actually kind of group them a little bit with the Penguins, honestly. Penguins have a little bit more of, you know, the Crosby element. And I think he's a guy who can carry that team, and if Malkin's firing as well. But, like, I just think a lot of those teams that are, like, kind of aging in the East, they're in that, like, pretender category. Like, or even if they sneak into the playoffs, I feel like they'll get smoked in the first round.
Yeah. Like Washington sneaks in, they play the Rangers, they're dead.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, I don't know. Are you surprised? I just some general NHL. Are you surprised the Devils, the way they've kind of struggled of late?
Yes, it's definitely not boding well for getting that first round pick this year. I I don't know. It's a long season. I
Yeah.
think they had struggles, if I remember correctly, last season for parts where they were like the fans were chanting fire, was it Lindy or
Fire
whatever?
Lindy, yeah.
I forget the chant they're doing, but yeah, it was like I think they have a team that's jacked. They should be near the top of that division, and I'm hoping they go on a run at some point. But 3 wins in your last 10 obviously isn't a good trajectory at the moment. I know Timo has been kind of injured for portions of the season so far, and I made a tweet kind of about his performance, kind of as more of like a joke, comparing it to Zetterlund. But you look at that Devils lineup; they should be among the top teams in the NHL. So I still have hope for them getting to that Eastern Conference final. I am definitely surprised they've struggled out of the gate, but I wouldn't say like all hope is lost.
Right. Jerry with the $5 super chat. We super appreciate that, my friend. My son and I are celebrating a Sharks win, and it feels great. It does feel nice. Like, it does feel nice. Like, in a season like this, you have to enjoy the wins when they come because we know they're going to be few and far between.
It's a different feeling than last year. Like last year, I was stressing, I think, every win because of the whole Bedard stuff. Sure. And don't get me wrong, like, I would love to get Macklin, but I just, like, the lottery, it takes all kind of like guarantees out of it. So at this point, like, anytime the Sharks are in a game and they're winning, or like they have the chance of winning, it's actually kind of fun because it's just unexpected at this point.
Yeah, I agree 100%. And like, I think this year too, like, I don't think, like, obviously it was like Bedard and then like there's a little bit of more of a cliff, right? Like, I don't like, is there that big? Like, I'll ask you because you're more versed in this than I am. Like, is there a huge drop between Celebrini and Yzerman, for example?
I think they're different kind of players.
Sure.
I think Celebrini.
We are back on. Unfortunately, Ian has lost internet at his house in the beautiful Sioux. So we'll continue on here. I am Erik Kuhre alongside Mark Eisenberg. We'll pick up where the conversation left off here. This does feel a little different from last year, especially lately. And of course, the beginning of the year felt like the days of the Cow Palace, but kind of finish on with what you were doing, what you were talking about before.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I think the vibes with wins feel a little bit different. I think last year I was just stressing, at least myself, and I feel like a lot of the fan base, the people who are on, the whole Bedard watch, were stressing pretty much any 2 points that you get. That lineup we're fielding, you don't expect any game to be a win. And then when you see them putting in the performance to get a win, or say Blackwood is standing on his head to get us a win, you get that commitment again. And we were talking a little bit about the prospects who are available in the draft. Yes, Celebrini is kind of like that elite level prospect. Yzerman, who's supposed to go number 2 probably, he's also a really top level winger. But with the way the lottery works, you just never guarantee to get that top pick, even if you're the worst team by 20 points. It doesn't really matter. So it's like, it's just enjoying these little wins is how you get through a season when you're rebuilding and you're kind of in this tanking mode that the Sharks are in.
Yeah, it's tough because you're hoping for Macklin, Celebrini, and of course there are ties to Celebrini, to the Sharks and junior Sharks in the Bay Area, so it almost seems like it's fitting for it. But as they're now tied with Chicago, what outside? I mean, I've heard of Yzerman, I've heard of Celebrini. Who else is in, let's say, kind of where the Sharks have been picking in that 4 to 7 range over the last couple of years?
There's a top Russian prospect. I don't know how it's actually pronounced. I know it's spelled like Demidov. I'm not sure how it's pronounced, but he's another guy who's like really, really skilled, but he's been injured recently, so it's kind of hard to really see what he's been doing this season. He got a few games in the KHL early in the season, and there's also a big Russian defenseman playing in college who's pretty good, but I haven't been terribly impressed when I've watched him. So it really is, I think, the two guys at the top, and then anyone who kind of emerges throughout the season, similar to like what Will Smith did last year, where he kind of climbed up from being more of like a top 10 pick to then being in the top 3 or 4 conversation. So I think the 1-2 guys are fairly certain. Anything can change with like World Juniors or like injuries, but there are a handful of other players who could creep into that top 5. So a little early to say.
Yeah, I mean, I remember, I think it was the other night when we were on and the Sharks had beaten Vancouver and Landy was on there, and I want to say even in the shootout loss to Montreal, there are people like, oh, you're picking up points. What are you doing? And yes, they're now tied with Chicago for last in the league. So there's always that. Okay, we always get caught up in Celebrini and Yzerman. So I just wanted to get that in there. If you're just joining us, we apologize for the technical difficulties, and unfortunately, Ian had his internet crap on him. Apparently, that does happen to just more than me, which is surprising. It's usually just my fault for it. So we'll continue on. Ian, we love you. Thank you for filling in. Just another Randy G. We did get your super chat, by the way. Sharks win and a VGK loss. It's a great night. Absolutely. We appreciate that one. Hey, Ian, trust me, mine is usually rock solid. My internet is usually rock solid. But, it happens, dude. It happens. We're all good. I got your back, buddy. All right. AJ mentioning if Anaheim or San Jose finishes last and Chicago wins the lottery again, I'm done with hockey. Hey, Chicago, Edmonton, if they're the first two, that's a tough one to take. So when did Ian move to Winnipeg? But we continue on here as the Sharks will be headed to your direction, Mark, for a 6-game road trip. It's not gonna be easy, but Boston's been in a rut a little bit lately. The Devils have been rough. You guys had mentioned that earlier, and Rangers. Those are the 3 remaining games this week: Thursday, Friday, Sunday. But what have you seen out of those squads that could?
The Rangers
give the Sharks a chance.
The Rangers are the real deal. The Bruins, I think people are surprised with them continuing on at the pace they were at last year, having lost a few of those guys to retirement. But I think the Bruins obviously are a pretty good team as well, especially in net. And then I think it was the Devils as well. We spoke just briefly about them earlier in the pod, and it was just like they're off to a slow start. They were off to a slow start last year, but again, on paper, they've got a really good team. It should be interesting to see how the Sharks fare on this road trip, because we see that they've been doing really well at home, right? Like they're 5-1-1, I think it is, in their last 7 at home. But going on the road, East Coast trip against these teams where like they're no joke. Their third line is probably better than our first line. So seeing how we fare against them, and we haven't gotten a win this season yet on the road, it should be an interesting trip. I know myself, I'll definitely be at 2 of the 3 games, hopefully a third game. I'm still looking at some ticket options.
Nice.
But it should be fun. I think one of the things that's somewhat pleasant, I guess, sometimes about being a opposing team fan when you're in New York, no one really hates the Sharks, so you don't really tend to get too much crap at these games when they're doing the little New York trio of the Devils, Islanders, and Rangers. So a lot of people will see the jersey, they'll be like, oh, I loved that jersey in the 90s, or they'll say something like, dude, Sharks, man, I was pulling for you guys with Jumbo. So, as there could be some bad reputation for some of these teams and their fan bases, for the most part, I've had pretty good experiences most of my life here being a Sharks fan.
That road trip that they're about to go on is the dream road trip for me, and work always requires me to to have my vacations set in stone by February. So it's like, okay, do I chance it being in late October like it's done, or figure out when? So by all means, have fun with it, and share it online and everything for that matter. It's just, it's nice to see the wins, and like kind of going back to what you guys were talking about. It's nice to see the wins in the sense that they're finally getting their legs together. You hate that it has to come off of, a 7-1 loss or a 10-1 or 10-2 loss to get it together, and it's just frustrating to see that in the long run. So
yeah, it's a bunch of extremes. It would be much more enjoyable if it was a little bit more consistent, like, close games. If you're losing, it's still a competitive match. But I mean, you can't argue against what we've seen recently from the Sharks. There's definitely progress there, despite the lineup, players that are missing from the lineup, and the lineup that is on the ice every single night.
It's just, it's gonna be crazy. Sleepy Mofo, Zetterlund revenge game against Jersey. Yes. Oh, that would be fun. Heck, let's just call up Mukamadillin while we're at it, too.
Yeah, exactly. Just bring them all up.
Hey, that'll be that. If I know you guys touched on the Banks injury. Hey, if it goes down, there's the next defenseman that can play it forward. Yeah.
Yeah, we could dress 9 defensemen instead of 8, right?
Yeah. Quinn did say, according to AJ, Barabanov and Hurdle will both be on the trip. That's nice to see. Hopefully, it's nothing serious for Hurdle in that fathom. Before we go, kind of want to touch on kind of the news today. And no, we're not talking about Corey Perry. Let's not. We can save all our parody songs for Stacy's mom later. What do you think of the All-Star format going back to the fantasy draft? And they're going to have celebrity captains, which Justin Bieber is probably one of them.
I thought it was interesting back in the day. It adds a little bit of, I wouldn't say fan interaction, but more of like an interactive experience. Like, the whole choosing your teams is always kind of like bringing you back to like, pickup hockey, or like when you're playing any sport in like the schoolyard, how it was. So, I dig it. The All-Star game obviously is not what it once was. So anything you can do to make it a bit more interesting, I'm always on board with that. Like, I remember when I was a kid, the All-Star game was classic. Like, you think about those 90s All-Star games with some of the personalities and how the events were so coveted back then. Whereas now it just kind of like a little bit dull at times. So, little things like this definitely improve the experience.
Yeah, dull and just seems frustrating with marketing ability, which sucks. But
for sure.
Yeah. It's just going to be, it'll be interesting. I already have it on record. Congratulations to Much Hurdle on winning the car. And of course, someone responded to me, "Oh, that's probably Mackenzie Blackwood." And they're like, "Yeah, you're right. That's very true." So AJ's like, we're just going to completely ignore the Sens and Panthers tonight? How crazy that game was, and it's like, you get a 10-minute misconduct. You get a 10-minute misconduct. Everybody gets a 10-minute
video. Everyone on the ice gets a 10-minute misconduct among other penalties. Like, that was amazing.
That was hilarious. It was kind of like you've seen on YouTube. False start, everyone but the center.
Yeah.
So
it's always great when the referees add a little bit to those announcements. I mean, you always think back to Macaulay with some of his announcements, but so those videos, those are the things the NHL needs more of, because some of the other pro sports have a lot of that, and they just need to market those moments just a bit more.
It sucks that that the most marketable person in the NHL is a referee. Kind of tells you something there, but that's a conversation down the line. So I'm glad they're getting the PWHL involved that Thursday with a 3-on-3 showcase, and then the usual fun stuff that they have. I know they tried to do some crazy things outside on the Vegas Strip, and then on a golf course in Florida. I'm curious what they have going on for Toronto in February. So
it's the hub of hockey. I'm sure they'll come up with something cool,
right?
Or at least something that's supposed to be cool. We'll determine after if it was, but yeah.
That's Oh man, that's gonna be fun. It'll be fun either way. But I think that will bring us to the close of this one. In case you missed anything or you want to watch this again, check us out on tealtownusa.com or your favorite podcatcher, wherever you get your podcasts. Of course, if you're watching us on YouTube, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and of course, leave a comment down below on tonight's action, telling us what did you think of tonight's game. Is Luke Kunin your up-and-coming first-line center, which he was projected at the beginning of this one? Who knows? It'll be interesting to see what's going on. And hopefully Hertl is back in. And with Hertl and Barabanov back, who knows what that means for Justin Bailey. So we'll see on that one. But Mark, despite everything, the hiccups aside, thank you very much. And getting us caught up on some prospects and everything. What your final thoughts before we get out of here?
Final thoughts. Happy Blackwood was rewarded with another great performance, and kudos to Bailey. That effort he put in on that second goal was big. He did that pretty much himself. So there's obviously questions about whether he should be in the lineup, but hey, I respect what he did tonight. So kudos to him.
Yeah, no, he had a great time, even though they didn't get a whole lot of goal support. Which I think more than anything is hurting these goaltenders' games. But hey, Blackwood being solid this evening against a good Washington Capitals team that's having a rough time of sorts. So we'll see how that goes. But to shut down Ovechkin,
always a win.
Always a win. And we didn't score an empty netter and then let them win the game afterwards. So that's always a plus.
Third star of the night was also the posts, being that Washington did 5 of them.
You're not wrong. You are not wrong. So, Mark, thank you, buddy. Appreciate it. He needs to get some sleep, and so do we. So thanks for watching. We'll be back with you on Thursday following Sharks and Bruins. That's a 4 p.m. start. So we'll be on roughly about 6:30 Pacific. So we'll check us out then. And until then, thanks for watching. Keep it real. Keep it teal. Keep it real, teal. Have a great night, everyone.